I'd like to bring this conversation back to what we learned from the past. And by the past, I don't mean the last century or the last 2 centuries or even the last few millennia. I mean millions and millions of years of evolution. So let's go on the premise that evolution has been in place for a lot longer than human decision making, and has been able to experiment with a lot of different ways to construct supply chains and networks. So perhaps we have something useful to learn. So here, I don't know if you can see this. This is a magnolia leaf. And if you see the veins on this magnolia leaf, you see the main branch and all of these branches going off. But if you were able to look very, very closely, you would see a very intricate network of vein leaves. And maybe next time you can go outside and look at a leaf, you will see this extremely looped and intricate network of these veins. So this leaf has a supply chain problem, the same as we have in human society. Supply chains are absolutely essential for this leaf to move water and sugars, just as they are absolutely essential in human civilization to keep us secure and less subject to shocks. And we've seen the benefit of globalization and supply chains, as we've heard from our other panelists. But supply chains are also vulnerable to shocks. So what happens if an insect takes a bite out of one of these leaf veins, or if there's some kind of shock to the system? The supply chains are also vulnerable. So how did nature evolve, or evolution experiment, to balance that benefits from supply chains and risks from supply chains? So if you look at very finely at these leaf veins, you will see that the way that evolution has balanced this problem is not to be completely efficient, because building all those loops, just like building lots of chains in a supply chain, is not exactly the most efficient way, but it confers redundancy, because there are multiple ways to get from path A to path B. So what we learn from evolution is that redundant supply chains are absolutely essential. Networks to carry goods, essential. But also networks can be constructed to build more redundancy into the system. And if there's shocks in one part of the system, trade barriers or some kind of shock, then there are other options to go around. So that's what we learned from this magnolia leaf. And it's been so fascinating to watch the conversation along those very same lines, although not referring to leaf veins, but the importance of redundancies in supply chains, in businesses, and our ability to get PPE, and the danger of relying on sole sources. And where we have seen problems in the supply chains, it's been where there has not been redundancy, where there's been single source or few source suppliers. So the message I want to leave with you from this sort of left field, bringing in the learnings from leaf veins, is that globalization and supply chains, it's not an either or. It's not either full out efficient globalization or self-sufficiency. That evolution has devised a way to balance, get the benefits from you could say globalized supply chains, but also manage the risks through redundancies and multiple options. That would mean countries relying on not just one source for its food and its most essential supplies, and companies thinking about redundancy in their supply chain in case there's a problem in one part. So this is the kind of, I think that when we move forward, and we're seeing this in what we're hearing from businesses and from people who think deeply about these, is that a big learning from this shock that we are going through is about understanding our supply chains and creating redundancies, as Martin had mentioned.